Welcome to My Body, My Bump, My Baby, where we help women be empowered, intentional mothers. This podcast is best enjoyed sipping tea or taking a stroll in nature. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be substituted for professional psychological or medical advice, diagnoses, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, midwife, or other qualified health provider with any questions about your personal situation, health, or medical condition.
So I'm going to share with you guys a story. I love stories. That's where I live. I actually had this client. I was her doula. And this was before we had a birth center in Colorado Springs. So if you wanted to have a birth center birth back then, you had to drive to Longmont, I think. So basically going to Denver. And that's a really long haul if you're really kind of thinking through things like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in the middle of labor and we're going to drive an hour to Denver to go have this baby. And just like any birth center, they don't want you there really early. They kind of want you there after you've labored for a while. So there's also that juggling of when is the best time to go? Anyway, she's planning this birth at a birth center that's out of town. But there was a reason. She had a story about it. So her older sister, just the year prior, had her first baby. And her sister really wanted to have a beautiful unmedicated birth. And she had this very common idea in her mind. And it does make a lot of sense on the surface. Women have been having babies for all of human time. Right? So our bodies know how to do it. So I should just be able to go into labor and do it. And that's all she needed in her heart. That's all she needed, she thought, to get through this. So she chose a hospital. Her labor started and they were super excited and a little bit anxious and nervous. And they went to the hospital straight away. And her bag of water ruptured kind of early. Unlike in the TV shows, bag of water doesn't usually rupture at the beginning. It usually ruptures at the end. That's where we want it to break. So hers broke early. And then a whole bunch of nothing happened. But she's sitting at the hospital. And because she's sitting at the hospital, they're like, well, you need to have a baby. Let's have a baby. So basically intervention after intervention after intervention, which was essentially an induction that happened for her. Her baby started to have a hard time and they needed to take the very next intervention to help baby, which was cesarean birth. That mama came out with so much trauma about what happened during her labor and the choices that were made and things that she didn't know about. And why didn't she know about them? And she brought all of that heartache and hurt home and shared it with her family. And so her sister knows this story, and her sister knows how much in her postpartum, the older sister struggled with the story about what happened and what she wanted in the dream that she had envisioned versus what ended up happening for her. And so the younger sister had that story when she came to me and she's like, I need to rewrite this story. I need to rewrite it for my sister because she's scared to death. She's so scared that she's like, I don't think I can ever have another child, because it went so horribly wrong. And I need to rewrite it for my mother because my mother is now horribly scared about birth. And she's like, but I still believe in my sister's original vision. I still believe that it's a doable thing. So I am going to set out to prove this. And so she took all of the classes. She took childbirth classes. She did yoga. She ate well. She took newborn care. She took labor prep class. She took everything. And some of them she had to take too, because the birth center in Denver required their own classes. And I required my own classes because I want my clients to be very prepared and I want us to be on the same page. So then the labor came. And her mom was still so worried, but her mom was part of the birth team and she was going to drive up to Denver with us. So we all drove up to Denver. We got there and we were laboring, and the whole time the mom was giving me like the dagger eyes. Like, I don't trust you. I'm really worried about my daughter. I'm really scared this is going to go bad. And I don't know why we're at the birth center, right? So much so that she actually planted herself in the corner so nobody could see her, because she just couldn't, like, she was so emotional about what was happening. And the mama, my client, was doing phenomenally. She was, just making her laboring sounds and moving her body, and her partner was right there, touching her, talking to her the whole time. They were so connected. This was all happening in the middle of the night. And we just so happened to have this room that had a window. And when we looked out the window, she's like hands and knees on the bed, and the window's just to the right of her. And when you looked out the window, there's a full moon's light peeking through that window. And here she is laboring, and her husband's behind her holding her hips. And he's got these tears coming down his face because he knows how much she wants it, and he knows how much she's working. And he's like, wants to be there with her and help her to accomplish this. And I think at this point, her mama and her partner were starting to doubt. They were starting to worry. And I'm like, we got this, right? We got this. And she just kept going, and she started to doubt. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. Which, as a birth worker, I knew that's because she was close to the end. That was because she was almost there. We always break right before we get to the finale, which is the baby coming out, right? So she was just going through the natural part of breaking down right before the baby came. You got this, right? Sure enough, it was time to push. This mama pushed her baby out so fast. Usually for a first-time mom, it takes like 2 hours. She just had so much might and so much power and decided that she's doing this. She rolled over to her side and just like, 30 minutes, wow. She pushed that baby out and had that baby on her chest. And everybody was fine. Mama was fine. Baby was fine. Grandma was fine. Grandma had to be my ride home. So after some hours had passed and everybody was ready to go home, I got to ride home with Grandma, and I'm sitting there next to her. She's driving. She doesn't look at me, and I'm sitting here next to me, and I was like, you didn't think she could do it. She didn't say anything. I was like, you were giving me dagger eyes. She was like, I know. I like, she did do it. And she's like, she did do it. She did it. She was like, she worked so hard for that birth, and I'm so happy she did it. And she was like, it completely changed my perspective on birth. So the story I shared is because sometimes our actions of preparation is not only something that empowers ourselves, but can empower generations. She's literally reinvigorated her sister, her mom. Her baby was a girl. Her mom has that power and might. So when her baby girl goes to have her own baby, she can say with all of her heart and all of her strength, you can do it. I did it with you. And you don't know how much that travels. I have clients who come in and they come in with so much confidence, like, we know we can do it because my mom did it with me. I mean, generations impacted by one birth story, by one mama who believed she could do it and just took all of the steps that she needed